Today we're talking about managing our biggest fear, hurricane season.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Dan and Leslie here. If you are new to the channel, we are a family of four that is moving to Orlando, and we have purchased a home in Orlando, just outside of Disney World, our favorite place.
So we move at the end of the year, and our biggest fear this year has been owning a house in Florida, in Orlando, and being here, not being able to keep an eye on it. So I think that once we live there, I'm not sure that hurricane season will be as big of a fear for us, just since we're centrally located in Florida. But definitely for this year, while we can't be in our house, it is.
Yeah, so this is a video about how we are coping with that, how we are making it through hurricane season, what we are doing to make ourselves feel better, not sure it's helping, but, and then what we're gonna do once we get there. For lifelong Floridians, this whole video may seem a little ridiculous. We are not. We have no ideas what to expect when it comes to a hurricane.
Yeah, as longtime Oklahomans, I mean, the natural disaster we deal with predominantly here are tornadoes, and I'll say, up until a few years ago, whenever we encountered one a little bit more closely, we would go stand on the front porch and watch them. So
that's like everybody that's lived in Oklahoma, not everybody, but for a long time, they will go watch for the tornado out their front window rather than hide inside, depending on what the weatherman is saying is close. So yeah. Making the transition from a tornado that can like strike at any moment to a hurricane that you can actually see coming, and it's just which path it takes, if it hits you or not, is very, very strange for us. Okay, so we are not meteorologists. We know nothing about hurricanes except what we have learned over the last few months. So we are going to walk through that and tell you where we're at, and hopefully ask for a little bit of feedback on what else we can figure out with this thing.
So I mentioned earlier that it may not be as big of a fear later once we're there, but definitely, I mean, we'll probably always be a little on edge and be hurricane aware for sure.
Bear aware.
But I mean, this season in particular, we are mostly concerned because we're not there. We're not there to be able to monitor things.
I want to be able to be there and just see if shingles are blown off or assess damage and then figure it out from there. But being here 18 and a half hours away as far as a drive, or a flight takes a half as long as at least, because you got to take at least 2 different flights to get there. That is my biggest thing. What we have done, so we've got a ton of video cameras inside and outside of the house. We have also met our neighbors. We have exchanged phone numbers with them, and we text with them, and I'm sure they would let us know if something did happen to the house, if a storm did blow through.
We've also kept in touch with Ken, our realtor. We've mentioned him before on the videos. Ken at the Posick group. He's fantastic, and he doesn't realize it, but but we would probably call on him if we needed somebody to go in and look on the house.
Yep, and we know some people down there that are just friends, and I'm sure that they would be happy to go over, drive by, and check on it for us. So that brings us a little bit of comfort just knowing. But that's kind of how we are monitoring everything there.
The first thing was that we researched hurricanes and figured out what we needed to know.
We literally knew nothing about hurricanes. We knew that there were categories of hurricanes. We didn't really keep up with hurricanes. We have been to Florida a ton in the past 10 years, but we never really focused on the hurricanes unless there was one projected sometime around when we were going. So first thing we did was just figure out when hurricane season 1 was. Honestly, I knew it was probably late summer, fall. Turns out it is 6 months long, June 1st through November 30th, with the middle or the peak of hurricane season being like towards the first half of September. If you look at this graph, the peak of hurricane season, according to how many storms have occurred, is September 10th, and it kind of builds like a crescendo up to September 10th and like tapers off. So right now is October, and we are still in hurricane season. So we are still a little bit on edge. However, we are on the second half of things, so we are getting there.
Hopefully, we don't have to worry much longer.
Right.
Specifically for hurricanes in Orlando, because Orlando is 60 miles from the coast, if a hurricane was to directly hit, by the time it actually reaches Orlando itself, they tend to be a lot weaker than they were whenever they hit the coast.
Right. And so just looking in Florida, we kind of researched, well, we knew we wanted to be by Disney World in Orlando, so it kind of drove the decision right there. But
the decision had nothing to do with hurricanes.
But it made us feel better that we weren't on a coast. And, you know, if when hurricanes come in, like the more likely areas to directly get impacted are along the coast, obviously. So
yeah.
The next thing that we did is to download a bunch of iPhone apps that help us to monitor forecasts for hurricanes, monitor hurricanes and storms in real time, and then also do things, and we'll kind of talk about those. So the first one that I want to talk about is Hurricane Pro. Hurricanes Pro is, I think, my favorite one of the bunch because it's pretty simple to use. You can pull it up, you can see the spaghetti models of like the different paths or tracks that the hurricane might take when depending on like different variables. And you can see the forecast.
So next we have some radar apps, just normal weather radar apps.
So we've got a few weather radar apps, but a couple of the ones I like better are Weather Radar, number one. Climb is a good one, although you have to pay a $20 annual fee to get the hurricane tracking feature. So that's, you know, whatever. And then Fantastical is an interesting one, which allows you to see the wind velocities and the directions like in real time. So I was like switching back and forth between these different like radar apps and Fantastical, like as Hurricane Elsa was coming towards the west coast of Florida in July of this year. And so it was really interesting because I could kind of see how fast the wind speeds were and then where that center of the storm was. I learned a lot during that storm, even though it didn't really affect Orlando at all.
Well, I'll be completely honest, Dan has definitely been more obsessed with the hurricanes than I have been.
I'm very much obsessed with the hurricanes. We, of course, keep up with local news. So WESH, W-E-S-H, is, I think, Channel 2 news in Orlando. That just happens to be the one that I check more frequently and get alerts from. And then we have all the utility apps.
The utility apps helps us view any storm outages or any storm-related news.
So that's pretty helpful because I can see if we lose internet connectivity. I mean, obviously the cameras will go out, so I'll know that, but I won't know if it's like a power outage. I can also see power outages and estimated times on when that's going to be fixed and back up. So that gives me a little bit of peace of mind as well.
All right, so another thing that we follow is we actually follow Dennis Phillips live. So he's very informative.
He's local meteorologist there in Orlando, and he is very, very active on Facebook. So like you said, he does Dennis Phillips Live, and it's put on his Facebook page, which is really, really helpful. And then he is, again, very active on posting forecasts, and he addresses like the tropics and what different systems are kind of brewing out there in the Atlantic or Gulf and what could affect the Orlando area, and then touches on why they matter. So he has these 7 rules about hurricanes that I absolutely love. My favorite is rule number 7. It is a rule that he refers to all this time whenever a storm is coming. He puts on there, you know, remember rule number 7, and new people are like, what is rule number 7? But it's basically stop freaking out until I tell you to. Stop freaking out, we're fine.
Matter of fact, number 7 is so popular that he has merchandise with
for number 7.
Rule number 7 all over it.
Right. So another resource that I have just recently found and is way over my head, but I actually really, really love, is a website called Tropical Tidbits, and the guy that runs it is, I mean, obviously a meteorologist that knows his stuff, but it's very, very informative, like meteorologist level informative, but they have so many graphics, so if you show me a picture, I can usually kind of understand like what the lines mean, and that's what I look at are the pictures, and it addresses like everything that's going on. And then if a big storm is coming, he's done like videos that will show what the possibilities are and why a storm might turn a certain way.
So how we've prepared for hurricanes this year is to have and understand our insurance, both our flood and our homeowners insurance.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a really good tip no matter where you live. I mean, when is the last time you got out your homeowner's insurance policy and looked at it and looked at the deductibles and looked at what it actually covers? We did get flood insurance just because Florida is at sea level, like the entire state. Understanding what the coverages are, what the deductibles are, exactly what it covers is super important, and that also gives you some peace of mind there.
Yeah. So we already mentioned this, but we set up all of those cameras so that we can keep an eye on the house and hopefully see if there's any issues that we need to address. And then we've also kept in touch with our neighbors so that if we need somebody to, run over there in a hurry to look at something, then hopefully they would be available to do that.
The next thing we did was to ship some supplies like tarps and tools down there, and they are in the garage now. And so if we need them, so for instance, here in Oklahoma, whenever a tornado goes through a certain area, those things tend to be kind of hard to get. And we have no idea in hurricane season of a hurricane, but we assume it's probably the same way. So we have some tarps and things that we could at least keep water out of the house if like shingles blow off and that kind of thing.
And then every time we're there, before we leave, we pull in all loose items back into the house. Things that would, not like the front rug, but big things. So like we have some outdoor furniture that we just pull straight into the house because it's light enough that if the winds were strong enough, it could cause some damage. And so we just don't want to risk it blowing around.
Yeah. And the last thing that we've done is Leslie has had this airline voucher for a while now, and we are keeping it just in case something does happen and we gotta throw her on a plane to run down there real quick and check on something.
Yes.
Plan B right here.
So we're definitely gonna prepare for next year's hurricane season, probably like as soon as we move.
They actually have a tax-free hurricane preparation weekend right before hurricane season, which is kind of nice. You can go get all your hurricane supplies and not have to pay taxes on it. But yeah, I'm so anal about storms. I'll probably be doing this in December. But like the first thing we're gonna do is put together a hurricane survival kit once we're there. And so that'll have things like flashlight, first aid kit, batteries, duct tape, manual can opener, and that kind of thing.
And the next thing we're gonna purchase is a generator.
We've never had a generator before,
nope.
Which is interesting living in Tornado Alley. But honestly, if a tornado hits here, it like jumps around a lot and it's not like wiping out the whole area. So it's not like a hurricane where power. So I actually was in New Orleans in a military function for Hurricane Katrina or after Hurricane Katrina, and power was wiped out for a while. So that's kind of what we want to prepare for.
Yeah, and really here in Oklahoma, the biggest things that, the biggest reasons that you lose power for extended periods of time is actually ice, more so than tornadoes, and it tends to not be for more than a few days, and that's kind of extreme. So
one thing that I've read a lot is you want to fill up your bathtubs with water, and it's not necessarily for drinking, it's more for flushing toilets. Another thing that we would do is obviously we're going to stock up on bottled water, but we can get Ziploc bags, fill them with water, like gallon Ziploc bags, fill them with water, and then freeze those, and it will do a couple of things. Obviously you can use it for water as they melt, but it will keep the freezer and the refrigerator colder longer if there are big blocks of ice in there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And then we want to make sure that we don't go hungry. So, because if you've watched us for any amount of time, you know food is really important to us. So we're going to have extra shelf-stable foods. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Like canned foods, instant meal type things that don't necessarily require a lot of power. Dog food, of course, and cat food, so that our dog and cat don't go hungry. So those kinds of things as well.
We're also going to have some chlorine bleach on hand that we can disinfect drinking water with. The EPA actually has a guide on how you can do this. So chlorine is a common disinfectant for drinking water at water plants. So we're not totally crazy. This is actually a thing, apparently. We've never done it before, but it sounds like it's something good to have. I don't know.
I'm probably going to worry about it the first time we do it a little bit.
And then the final thing that we are going to have are propane for grills and cooking.
Okay, so how has it gone so far? Pretty good.
Yeah, this year has, knock on wood, I don't have any wood around me, but this year has not been horrible. The closest hurricane that came by Orlando this year was on July 6th. There was a Category 1 to the west of Tampa, Elsa, and it didn't even really hit Tampa. Like, it stayed a little bit more out into the Gulf, so it didn't affect Orlando at all. But I think that whole night I was watching those radar apps and watching our cameras and going back and forth. It was.
We even checked on the house in the middle of the night when we got up to like go to the bathroom. Dan's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just looking at the house."
We still have power. We still have internet. We're okay. And then really for all of the other storms that haven't affected Florida for the most part, I've just been intently checking the forecast on Hurricanes Pro.
Intently equals obsessively.
daily. And then every time there is something brewing in the Atlantic or the Gulf, then I try, and I know it's too far out to really know for sure, but I try to, you know, listen to Dennis Phillips and listen to the local meteorology pages and like that tropicaltidbits.com I mentioned earlier, and just see what the possible tracks could be. It's a lot of obsessively checking my phone, I'll tell you that.
All right, so tell us, what have we overlooked? We feel like we've learned a lot. We know we probably still have a ton more to learn because we don't know really what we don't know, right? So
I'm gonna go back and look at this video in 2 years and laugh probably. We're gonna be like, we were so stupid, I don't know. So this is a couple of Okies coming down to Orlando and trying to deal with hurricanes. This is what this is. And
we'll repay the favor. If you ever move to the Midwest and are worried about tornadoes, we got you covered.
Give you some advice.
All right, so if you like what you hear and what you've seen here, we would love it if you would like the video and subscribe to our channel so that you can receive notifications every time we have new videos that pop out.
Yeah, and we are moving soon. So we are moving our first load, our first U-Haul at the end of the month. So that's like half of our house, and then we'll be moving everything else at the end of the year. So follow along on that journey, please. Yeah. This is the craziest thing we've done, quit our jobs and move our family across the country to be next to Disney. But yeah, check it out and we'll see you on the next video.
Yeah.